Hey everybody, welcome to the studio. If you have not met me or seen my videos before, my name's Jetty. I'm a mixed media artist. I work in clay, beads, collage, art journaling. And this project kind of evolved out of the art journaling side of things. My part-time job had a large quantity of cardboard CD covers, bifold, 2 CDs. And they were switching over to thumb drives. They weren't going to use the CD covers anymore. And these cardboard covers just really sparked some creative ideas for me. They wanted to be made into little blank books. They are, they're great. They have pockets. So where the CDs would have been stored, you could use them for all different kinds of things, but the way they're folded, they have just enough width of a spine for stitching in a simple signature. The plan just came together so quickly and easily. I love bookbinding. I love a blank book, but it makes me a little bit sad when people make a beautiful book and then don't use it and it sits empty on the shelf. So part of me wanted to take this opportunity to really upcycle these materials that were going to just be recycled. But another part of me wanted to make a book that was simple and casual enough that it might be easier to use. So this is a small square blank book. Whether you decide to write in this or draw in this, you could collage in this, or you could add photos to this. The paper that we're going to be using is just a simple white drawing paper. So it would take pencil and pen and marker really well. Probably wouldn't take too much water if you were going to do watercolor. But if you were collaging things in, it would get firmer and hold up to that weight just fine, I think. So even if you've never done any bookbinding, even if you've never done any collage, this project is going to be easy start to finish, and you're going to love it. The only caveat is please don't save this book, but use it. So I'm going to turn the camera around and I'm going to walk you through the process. One extra note, I hope to have kits of these materials available, so I'm filming this video with that in mind. Now, perhaps you saw me at a show and I had the kits available there. Perhaps you met me at a workshop where you made one of these books and then wanted to have an additional book to make more to give to family and friends. So I'm not sure the context of how you're going to be viewing this video, but I still think that it's straightforward and a very satisfying project. So now I will turn the camera around and we'll get started. So our CD cover here is just perfect for this. It has enough of a spine. We'll have room to poke the holes and stitch in the one signature. And that's the bookbinding term for that stitched group of pages. Before we get to that, though, let's put a basic cover on this, the first element in the collage. The fact that these were bound for the recycling bin and I wanted to upcycle them into something kind of started me thinking, and I have a lot of other upcycled materials that I use. I have the entire Encyclopedia Britannica that was in my family, gosh, when my brother was a kid, so maybe the late 60s. I haven't ever looked to see the date on this one. Anyway, it's great paper to use. I like the text as an element. It is thin and it is aging a little bit, so it can be a bit fragile. So it's nice to use glue stick on fragile pages. But this is going to be what we put down first to cover the cardboard. And then we're going to be working our decorative elements over top of that. So, one piece is not quite long enough. We want to have this with enough overhang on all the sides that we have enough to fold over. So yep, kids glue stick. It's purple now, it dries clear. And I just want to make sure and rub this down so I know that it is connected everywhere and so that I don't have any wrinkles. Now when I flip this, you're going to see how much excess paper I have. Top and bottom is pretty okay. I want like an inch. And so this is probably 1.5 inches. Great. Not enough that it's worth trimming down, but there's too much here. Too much floppy getting in the way. So I'm actually just going to use the ruler because I know that the ruler is approximately 1 inch, maybe a little bigger. That's going to give me borders. They're much easier to fold inward and glue. So the first part of this is that I'm going to do the corners. And you want to do this gently because this is old paper. But I'm just making a nice triangle and folding the corner down. That one did tear a little bit. And that's okay. Like I said, I want this to be a book. It can be used. I don't want this to be too precious. Now, it doesn't matter whether you do the top and bottom first or the left and right sides first, but whichever you do them in a set. So I'll do these guys first. And you are going to get some glue on your fingers in all different parts of this process, but a damp paper towel on your workspace is great just to be able to clean that off your fingers quickly without having to, get up and stop what you're doing. So in a lot of ways, it's like wrapping a present, just getting your corners done first and then folding and securing all of your edges. All right, so there's my outside, there's my inside. Then next we'll work on the inside. Okay, this is a really thin kind of fibery mulberry paper, at least I think it's a mulberry paper. And if I go ahead and put down one layer of it, I can see the color difference between the brown cardboard and the text paper showing through. That doesn't really bother me. And most of it's going to be covered up. Remember, you're going to see just a little bit of it in the inside covers of the book. If that bothers you, you can always double up. You could put some white paper in. I'm going to go ahead and double this one up just because the paper is sized perfectly. And glue stick is really nice with these fragile papers. If I were trying to use a wet glue or a gel medium to glue this, it would be extremely floppy and difficult kind of to handle. That's why glue stick is so nice for the text paper as well. I would rather have more glue. It is going to dry clear. You want to work a little bit quickly with the glue stick because you can see it as it starts to dry and fade away. This is basically the cover complete. Now it's time to decorate. So I have a drawer, a container that I keep all my scrap paper in. And I know not everybody has this. So before I dig into my scrap paper, think about things that you could use. We're talking about some decorative paper, some elements for collage. So maybe it's a card or a gift tag or something that someone sent you. Maybe it's the inside paper on an envelope. Maybe it's pages torn out of a catalog if you still get catalogs in the mail. It could be tissue paper, wrapping paper. It could be things you had stuck up on your bulletin board because they were pretty and you didn't know what to do with them. So I think that you'll find that there is decorative paper out there once you start to look for it, if you might have, a reason to notice it. So like I said, maybe you do crafting, scrapbooking, card making, maybe you paint and have even just scraps of paper that were underneath your painting that have paint splotches on them. There could be colorful decorative paper in all different places. I've used tissue paper from an old fabric pattern, part of an old map, an old stamp, scraps of paper. This was tissue, this was cardstock, and this was a scrap of paper from a different project. So I like to use kind of random shapes and use some of the shapes that occur in the scraps already. And I usually tear my paper because I like that torn edge. But you don't have to. This was scraps of origami paper and then 2 different colors that I picked to match. And then I cut out some kind of leaf shapes and then arranged this. So you can use the scissors. You can make shapes. It doesn't have to be a random collage. Whatever works for you. So the inside of my book is blue. That's nice. I've got paint chips in here. That's a great source of free decorative paper. That piece is already cut into an interesting shape, and there's a partner for it. Tissue paper with stars on it. So I just pulled out basically blues and greens. Colors that I like together. Colors that I like a lot. So I had a lot of those scraps. I'm not going to need much of this, if I even use it. So now you get to play. This is the kind of thing that I like as a random shape. It would fit in the corner so nicely. There, I like that. Because this scrap of cardstock with the peacock feathers is almost just the perfect height. I think it might be nice to have something like this over the spine, because the spine does have a tendency to tear because that text paper was so old. So a piece like this I'm going to position so that it hangs off the top and bottom, and those edges are going to be tucked underneath. Oh yeah, I like those two together. This one might be a little too blue. That one might be a little too purple. This is a scrap of paste paper. It's yummy. You know, using the scraps as they were, I could have torn this piece, but I kind of liked it as a long skinny shape. Matches that really well. And they were not, this was a commercial piece of cardstock and that was paper I painted. So that's funny that they matched so well. Yeah, I think that's it. So the hardest part of this whole thing is deciding where things are going to go. And then also, since I'm doing so many layers, getting things layered with the right thing underneath and the right thing on top. If that's the hardest part of the project, you know, that's not bad. Sometimes at this point, I will take a quick picture with my phone so that I have a reference of where I wanted things to go before I take them off and start gluing them down. You can do that if you want to be precise and make sure to match up with the original, or you can just kind of wing it. So that's pretty much where I want everything, and I'm happy with that. I might just gently kind of tear off the end of that so that my peacock feather still shows. I do have one thought. I have these edges that I want to fold to the inside. Well, some of them are going to overlap my blue paper. I should have left this blue inside paper until last. And I didn't. I just kind of got excited about what I was doing and I went for it. So I'm going to just go with the flow on that. I'm not going to let that bother me. They're not going to stick over very much. So the blue paper wouldn't have covered these anyway. If that bothers you, you know, trim them a little bit so that you just have enough to stick over and glue down. Like I said at the beginning, I want this book to be a book that gets used, so I don't want it to be too precious or too perfect. It's old recycled paper from an outdated encyclopedia, cardboard that was destined for the recycling bin, and scraps of paper, maybe even scraps of junk mail, depending on where you sourced things. So don't get in your own way. Have fun. Maybe this is in your purse and it's, or in your backpack or in something, and it's like where you write your grocery lists. And then it's going to get all torn up because it gets tossed around inside your bag. Great. Use it, and when you're done with it, you're done with it. But I love putting different textures of paper and colors and combinations together. Now, before we actually put the book together, here is one pro tip if you want to take this to another level. This can be done as is, ready for stitching, ready to use as your book. That's great. If you don't have a lot of art supplies and you just needed a glue stick for this kit, that's kind of what the kit was designed to be. Easy, everything included, have fun. If, like me, you have quite a few art journaling supplies and materials around the house, if you've got art supplies, you can take this up a notch. So what I have here is gloss gel acrylic medium. Okay. I also have gloss medium that's not gel. So this is a more liquidy version. This is more like heavy cream. And this is somewhere between salad dressing and peanut butter. Okay. Now, if you want to protect the surface of this a little bit, you can give it one coat of this. Things to know. The coat can't be too thick, or it's going to buckle everything as the paper and the cardboard get wet. Once you put that coat on, you're going to have to let it dry for a couple hours before you finish and stitch the book together. But it will protect the book and help things like this, right? So I am going to give this a quick coat of just regular medium, not the gel. Why? Because I never use this, so I might as well use it on this project. Okay. Gloss versus matte. That's up to you. That's personal preference. That's what you have on hand if you have these materials in your craft space, your workspace, somewhere tucked away in your house. Now see, my gloss medium is so old that it's real thick like that. Normally it's way runnier. This is also going to help get the very edges of the paper stuck down. See, that's it. One quick smear. Am I doing the inside? No. Am I worried about the edges? No. If you wanted to do the edges, then you'd have to do them at a separate time once the outside was dry so that you could, set it up and do the top edge. And then when it was dry, reverse it and do the bottom edge. So I'm just going to let that dry. Magic of video. We'll be back in a sec when this is dry to put the book together. Okay, so we're back. My relatively new young puppy is in the room with me. So if you hear the click of toenails on the floor or strange chewing noises, please know that that's what's happening behind the scenes. Everything is dry, looks good. It's got a slight gloss to it since I did use a gloss medium. I kind of like that. All my edges are nice and glued down. So like I said, it's not essential for the project, but it does add a layer of protective coating, durability, longevity to the project. So now it's time to talk about the pages and to get everything stitched together. So what I'm going to be doing first is making a jig. So that little template will be where I'm going to poke the holes both in the cover and in the signature. As I said earlier, if you've purchased a kit, that may have been done for you. And it's nothing that has to be terribly precise. I'm not even going to measure anything. But I've got a scrap piece of paper that is the same height as the cover. I'm going to fold it in half long ways so that I have a crease. It's a pretty stiff paper. All right, crease down the center. Okay. Great, step one. So the first hole that I want to measure is in the very center. For the ease of seeing this on camera, I am going to just make little X's at the intersection of those two folds. So this is going to be, I think my samples just had 3 holes. So that's the most simple pamphlet stitch you can do. I'm going to take this bottom edge, fold it up to the center, and I'm going to repeat that on the other side. So that's the quick and easy way to measure equal distance from the center point to the edge, just by using the paper itself. So I'm going to use this cardboard piece as a cradle to poke the holes. Obviously, not everybody has one of these. You could use an old magazine, even a towel folded up a couple of times, something that you can stab into and not be going through to mark the surface of your table. The jig is a tiny bit longer than the paper pages, so I'm just going to split the difference, eyeball that, and poke pretty hard with the awl. Save that jig, that template, because you're going to need that for the cover. Double check. You can see through all of the holes, which I can. I can see light coming through, so those are good. All right, so we have holes poked. The stitching of this is a really simple stitch. I'm using a tapestry needle, so it has a large eye and a blunt tip, and I'm using a wax linen thread. I think I'm going to use the purple just for a little variation. I think it'll really play nicely with all the teals and blue greens. The best estimate on how much thread that you're going to need is to do 3 times the height of your cover. That's going to give you extra. And that way, if you're going to do some beading, you'll have extra to work on. If you think that might be not quite enough, you can give yourself more, but I do hate to waste the thread. Okay. Now, I mentioned at the beginning, if you want beads, if you don't want beads. And so it's time to decide that now. It will impact where you start your stitching. If you want to have tails for beads, you're going to start on the outside of the book. If you do not want tails for beads, you're going to start on the inside of the book. The pattern is the same. The number of stitches is the same. Everything is the same except for that starting point. It can be useful, especially if you're new to this, to kind of clip everything in place so that your text block and your cover are together. All right, I'm going in from the outside into the cover and into the text block, coming up in the very center of the book. I'm going to pull that through and leave myself a good 2 or 3 inch tail right there. Okay. Again, whether you're outside or inside, it's the same. I'm going to pick a direction, doesn't matter which. I'm going from the in, then you're going into the next hole. For me, that's going from the inside to the outside. Okay. Now looking at this, there's only 1 hole left. So this next stitch is a long stitch that spans the whole spine and goes through the cover and through the paper. Looking at this, again, there's only 1 hole left. So I'm going back through that first hole and I'm going to come up on the outside. I'm going to zoom in so you can see this. Right now you can see that my original tail is here on the right and that I've pulled the needle and thread up and it is also on the right, referring to which side of the big stitch they're on. I need one of these on each side of the big stitch. So now I have my original tail on the right and my ending tail on the left. At this point, I don't need the needle anymore. Give everything a little tug to tighten it up and tie a square knot. Left over right and right over left. Because the linen has a little wax on it, the knot is going to grip and hold tightly. Now, I did not even out my threads. I wasn't planning on putting a lot of beads on here. That's something I wish I had mentioned before I tied that knot so tight. If you're going to be doing thread embellishments, then you're going to zhuzh and wiggle that thread so that before you tie that knot, you have tails of equal length. For me, I'm just going to trim them and call it done. Oh, yep, there's the puppy. Okay. So that is my simple blank book from a recycled, upcycled cardboard CD cover. You notice it's got a lot of spring right now. So I'm going to press this under some heavy books for a day or two, and that'll just help everything settle into place. End paper, my pages, my stitches, and my cover. I think it's an excellent use of materials that otherwise just would have been scrap, and it's a great book to just jot some thoughts down in. Let me know what you think about this below in the comments. I'd love to hear your feedback. And as always, please like this video, subscribe to the channel for more art journaling techniques. There's a weekly spark every week where I do an art journaling page, and there may be some bead or some clay videos coming in the future. I'm not quite sure what all 2023 is going to hold, but I look forward to sparking some creativity for me and for you. So thanks for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed this, and don't let this sit on the shelf. Use it. Enjoy it. Bye-bye for now.